This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News. News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
I want to ask you this too. You said witness. I'm about to segue into this witness thing because we know that Billy Cowles, he passed away on April 26th of this year, and he was known as the witness because he was on that balcony when King got shot. But you know, a lot of people think
no, he wasn't. He was out there and he went back in.
So my thing is, like, people are kind of like questioning his place in that whole scenario. Some people believe that he was in on Dr. King being assassinated. What's your take on Billy Cowles?
We have this concern with been interviewing a lot of witnesses over the years after I got off the case and got off the bench. That was 16 years ago. So we've collected sworn affidavits, some sworn depositions. It's on tape, and we will be releasing something. So stay tuned.
Okay,
I will mention something about it in a book I'm coming out with.
Oh wow! I heard some things where I talked to Dick Gregory. He told me some things as well, and also it's been flown down the internet where he was on tape, kind of incriminating himself, say he got to wait so he get a clear shot, type of thing. Have you heard that clip?
Yes. I know most of the people who were on that balcony personally. Some have said, let sleeping dogs lie. Some have said, we need to get to the bottom of it.
So when you one of the people that said, let's get to the bottom of it?
No, I'm talking about the people who were out there.
Oh, out there, right.
When I've told them what we've come up with, we need to get to the bottom of this. Others have said, let sleeping dogs lie.
I keep on thinking like this. You know how they did Ernest Withers, like how the commercial appeal and all this media and people was praising him. Then the commercial appeal came out with a report a couple years later after he passed away, saying that he was an informant.
They're trying to badmouth him. See, actually, it's caught up with this fraternity thing. You know, the black frats started off not as a party thing, but as a disguise for a fight against apartheid or segregation. You had, for example, Emmett Till's situation. You had some alphas. A.W. Willis, Russell Sugarman, now Judge Sugarman, retired. You had some collaborators, one of whom was Old Man Withers, who took the photographs of Till's body. And Sugarman and Willis, who were alphas, along with some others, smuggled the photographs out of Mississippi and got them to Illinois' governor, who exercised his executive privilege to demand that the body of the Illinois resident be returned so everybody saw it. There were a number of cars shot up and destroyed. People got wounded in this. So see, Withers was always right there trying to do the right thing. So you have to deal with the commercial appeal. The commercial appeal is really owned through family enterprises by Kathleen Harris. Her son is Terry Harris, former U.S. attorney, now chief counsel for FedEx. Larry Brown is retired. He had that position. He's an old friend of mine. But anyway, see, they are were friends with Kenneth Turner and all the Republican hierarchy. So they once ran the Press-Scimitar, which was a lousy newspaper, just totally biased, and they ran news articles as an excuse to editorialize. Well, they were going bankrupt. So what happens is Harris and Company bought the commercial appeal. As soon as they bought the commercial appeal, they fired all the editorial staff and replaced the high editors with the Press-Scimitar editors. So they've been using it. It's a lousy newspaper now, though they have some decent folk that work on it. But it's a piss poor example of newspaper work. It's back to the old Hearst tradition of yellow journalism. Hearst, for example, wanted a war with Spain so America could get into imperialism. So he hyped that thing up about they destroyed the Maine, the battleship. Turns out that about 25 years after the fact, when it had more problems, what the U.S. Navy found out was the Maine burned coal. They used coal as partial armor, and they had it next to the magazines. Well, the type of cheap coal they were using will spontaneously ignite when it gets under pressure and it gets hot, and it will start burning. So the coal started burning, set off the black powder magazines, blew the ship up. It wasn't a bomb, it wasn't sabotage. But Randolph Hearst wanted a war with Spain, so he started hyping that. That's classic yellow journalism. They used to print it on yellow paper for the comic section that they had.
Wow.
So you see, the Commercial Appeal also owns Channel 3, owns Channel 5, partly, and you see there is this cable in the area to control what news you get. 13 is Fox, 24 is what it is, and 30 is what it is. But you see, here's where you get into the real problem. These political ads these days, the time before last I ran for an office was in 1998, and I held a record. I was the only person in the history of Shelby County to win every single precinct in a contested election.
Wow.
And my opponent was Harris's son, Terry Harris. So they were pushing Terry Harris for the last week in the Commercial Appeal and bad-mouthing me, but I got 72% of the vote. But what I did not realize as I've been gone from this area, and it's small enough for you to see it, I didn't do any ads until late because I was relying upon my already established community contacts. But what I did discover is the way the game now works in commercial television and in politics is you take out ads with a TV station so they don't badmouth you in favor of the person that's giving them the ads. If both candidates advertise on the same station, they play it evenly. If one of them advertises more than the other, then they'll badmouth the one that doesn't.
Wow.
So it's a form of, it's a corruption that's going on. And by the way, I actually won the election. Again, I got about 70% of the vote. But they've got these deballed voting machines that are corrupted. They've been hacked into. And all it takes to control an election is an iPhone, an Apple, an Android, iPad, or a tablet. And you don't have to have a code because there is no firewall, there is no security code. It's based on Windows 2000, and they don't even use the deballed programming. They use something that some guy down in Arkansas came up with, and it's never been tested or verified as per the state law. And the secret to this thing is that the candidates' names are not actually in the voting machines. There is a candidate number. So maybe there are only 2 candidates for the office, but there's 7 numbers in there. So with the phone, all you have to do is draft a text, and when you get within 5 to 10 feet of one of the machines, you just press send. You send the text to a third party, but the machine picks it up through the card reading slot. And it corrupts that machine. Within 10 minutes, every machine in the precinct, and within an hour, every machine in the system. And it comes up with what you call a differential vote count. So you program what percentage of the vote you want your candidate to have. So if you get into it, you might find that there are votes that go to other candidates in there, not other candidates, other candidate numbers. And when they kick the number out, the computer setup has kicked that around until you get an accurate count for the number of votes that went in. So the crime about that is, and talking about corruption, is since 1968, the money has been on accounts from federal drug seizures from the feds to replace the deballed machines without cost to the county. All it takes is a simple majority resolution by the county commission. We, the below-signed county commissioners, hereby resolve that the deballed machines should be replaced, period. Sign off, that's all it takes. But for the last 8 years, at least 3 black Democrats who are different because they have term limitations have voted against that. The Democratic Party Central Committee has not called them on the carpet for why. There was money embezzled from the Democratic Party. They're trying to put $20,000 worth of blame on Brian Carson, but there are other people who had it. And one of the schemes is a fundraiser that I was the MC for back in November 2013 at a country club. So the Democratic Party buys tens of thousands of dollars worth of tablecloths, china, tableware, serving utensils from the country club. What are they going to need it for? Well, the person that took care of that sold it back to the country club, and he got a check, but the check did not go back into the Democratic Party treasury. And from November 2013, when there was $150,000 in there, by July 2014, before the election, there wasn't $300 left in there.
Wow, that's crazy.
And then somebody seems to have taken some of the money and put on picnics to introduce white Republicans to the black community. Now his daughter gets financial assistance from financial entities that heretofore have not dealt with black entrepreneurs. And let's say this individual runs some child care facilities that supposedly have been cleared by the county ethics committee, which actually has no power other than making recommendations that land on the desk of Amy Wyrick, the DA. So that office is completely corrupt. I've never seen anything like it. There are at least 11 cases where an appellate court has called her to the account for prosecutorial misconduct, and nothing's been done until recently when it hit the paper she was disciplined by the Supreme Court, and so she wants to appeal that. But it's corruption and rampant, and what is going on is that by 2040, well, within the lifetimes of a lot of youth today who will be mature by then, the United States will no longer be a majority white country. So Memphis, for example, only 19.1% of the registered voters in Memphis are white. Less than 25% of the registered voters in the county are white, but they run it. So I guess they're practicing by use of the house Negroes and the compromised Negroes and the Negroes who put a whole bunch of, have a whole bunch of them in one race and one white candidate so they can run the politics. What the politics is all about is economic control. There are 7 things where the old money is in Memphis: real estate acquisition, real estate management, real estate development, construction, supply of construction materials, transportation, and distribution of goods. And they control it. And the city council goes along with it, grants zoning variances and everything else. City council appropriates taxpayers' money to build things, to make things, and then turn it over to private enterprise to run, supposedly for the good of the many, but it looks like to me for the good of the few. In other words, private enterprise is about putting your own money up, not tax dollars up, and then you either make it or you break it. So that's $35 million for Beale Street Landing, where it was supposed to be a bar and grill, but the city can't run it. And the business that it was set up for the benefit of bailed, so now they got a white elephant with a big catfish jungle gym. $28 million to this airline that never even incorporated, $7.2 million to a New York firm to look at these rape kits that TBI said they do for free and have been down here often to get it done. Why don't they want it done locally? Because certain protected people will be exposed for their pedophilia and illegal, unlawful behavior. Like that whole thing with Nora Jackson, the DA's office tried to conceal that there was a rape crisis kit evaluated, and it showed that there was a DNA sample, sperm, left in the vagina of the deceased victim within a couple of hours of her demise, and it was left by a United Methodist preacher up in Jackson, Tennessee, and his DNA was all over the house. So there is the little matter of Nora Jackson's father being gunned down in a hail of bullets near a police precinct where nobody heard the gunshots. That's still unsolved. And a few millions of dollars worth of money that has seemingly gone strange places that should have wound up with her, including an insurance policy split by an aunt and uncle. There's a situation where a certain Southern Baptist minister who's family friends with the DA, who left tapes of himself sodomizing these 9 through 12-year-old boys, and it made a thing with the state DA's newspaper. And what happens is this person got put on 10 years of probation, is not on a sexual offenders list. This is not the first time he's done it, and a slap on the wrist. And the church decided that it was going to give these boys fellowships or scholarships to go to college when they got old enough. See, somebody's supposed to be doing some long time consecutively in the state penitentiary for that. But, you know, I had a case where they tried to wire this DA when she was an assistant, tried to transfer it out of Division 5 from Judge Daly's court, tried to bamboozle me, and I insisted and wound up demanding that I be told how what the drugs were. 4.5 kilos of coke, crystal meth, LSD, all sorts of drugs, enough to get several life sentences in a federal system, or multiple 60-year sentences in the state system, and they wanted the perpetrator to get 1 year upfront probation, judicial diversion with no hearing, and his rich female young girl co-defendant to have the charges dropped and her record expunged. Metro Narco got really upset because they'd been working on this case for a long time. That's been 20-some years ago. But see, there's corruption that's rampant.
Yeah, so it makes sense. You look at that, what happened almost 50 years ago at the Lorraine Motel, that people was able to do that here in Memphis.
Oh, yeah, look, Medgar Evers got killed, 4 civil rights workers got buried in the levee, and Emmett Till was lynched. And by the way, interesting what the FBI did to solve that case. Remember, Hoover is anti-civil rights, but he doesn't like the Klan. What happened is they made a deal up with the non-existent entity popularly known as the Mafia. So they had a Mafia enforcer come down and visit the Klan suspects, and he jacked some up and got one of them to write out a 4-page handwritten confession to the whole thing and where the bodies were. So interesting what they can do when they put their minds to it.
Wow.
But you see, and that's because Hoover's parents were accused of passing for white, being black.
But did Hoover have something to do with the death of Dr. King, your estimation?
Oh, yes. See, for years, King had been subject to 24/7 audio and visual surveillance. 48 hours before he was killed, on the direct order of J. Edgar Hoover, they called it off. The weapon he got shot with was inventoried to the FBI in late December 1967. It was an XM21. It was a converted M14 with a stainless steel barrel, 63 of which were manufactured by the Army Marksmanship Unit. It had a rate of rifling twist of 1 turn in every 11¼ inches. 7.62 fired special subsonic ammunition. It had a psionic suppressor on the barrel with a 3 to 9 power red field telescope modified by a company known as Leatherwood. The FBI inventoried 5 of them in late December 1967. The rest of the Defense Department apparatus objected vehemently because they wanted them for the Navy, Marines, and Army for the Vietnam setup. And then 2 months after the King assassination, on an inventory, the FBI reports one of them as destroyed, damaged, or missing. So they only had 4 instead of the 5. It was left at the firehouse. The shot was taken from the firehouse dormitory cafeteria on the 2nd floor. The window was slightly open. They made the shot from a fixed cafeteria table or table in the dormitory. It didn't come from the flop house. It didn't come from the bushes. Captain Tommy Smith gave us an affidavit and permission from his widow to use the video, where he says he's the first detective on the scene 15 minutes after King shot. He's directed to the bathroom for the flop house. Why, he still hasn't been able to determine, or at least before he died. Said when he got there, there's a limb, he indicates, this wide, going diagonally through the window. You couldn't even see the Lorraine Motel. In a deck that the DA's office says is where Ray rested his rifle on. Well, Smith says, no, that's not what happened. He also clued us in on the fact that, believe it or not, it was Memphis Police Department's conclusion that Ray was not the gunman. After looking at all of it, it was also mine. The FBI took the death slug and they stripped the jacket off and split the core into 4 pieces and claimed that you couldn't analyze the bullet, and then they fired the samples from Ray's rifle, a 30-06 Remington 760 Game Master. It was a pump, not a bolt action, that had never been sighted in, that did not hit where the scope was looking, and they claimed that they couldn't make a direct identification. But I had the ballistic material analyzed using scanning electron microscopy, and it excluded Ray's rifle, which had a rifling twist of 1 turn every 10 inches, not 1 turn every 11¼ So, in a peculiar manufacturing flaw that is not apparent on the death slug. It's interesting. See, the subsonic ammunition slows the bullet down so it doesn't leave this supersonic crack. If you've ever been shot at by a rifle bullet, when it goes past you, it goes crack, and you can hear the cracks as it passes trees, crack, 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 and you can trace it back. So you slow it down below the speed of sound. It's below about 1,100 feet per second instead of 2,500 feet per second. It doesn't leave that crack. There's also something else. Energy equals mass times velocity squared. 150 to 162 grain bullet traveling at 25 to 2,700 feet per second has about 2,800, 2,500 foot-pounds of energy. That same bullet moving at 1,150 feet per second has 400 some pounds, a whole lot less. So they take a headshot. If they had had a full velocity 30 caliber bullet, expanding bullet like this one was that they pulled out of his body, and you shot him anywhere in the torso from the range that it is from where he was standing to the fire station, it's non-survivable even if you're standing right next to the emergency room door. if it's a solid torso hit, what they do is they take a headshot. They almost miss. Hits King in the right upper cheek bone, goes through, takes out molars, ruins his tongue, comes out between his lower jaws, exits the body, hits the clavicle, ricochets under the skin, over the shoulder, across the right scapula, going from right to left down, and winds up between the back skin and the left scapula. It never penetrates the thorax. It nicks the carotid artery, and that's what kills him. He bleeds out.
Wow.
He had it not done that, nicked the carotid, he would have survived. He wouldn't have been able to talk well. He would have been hurting, but that's what killed him. There's also an interesting cop who's off duty, runs up, you can see him in the video or the tape film. He's bending over King's body. He interestingly becomes the first full-fledged CIA agent in the agency's history. Within a couple of months, he'd been off duty and he was a new cop.
Yeah, Morel McCullough.
Yeah.
I talked to him for a couple minutes on the phone.
Yeah.
I found his phone number online. It was like he had a South Carolina area code, and he confirmed who he was. But when I about the CIA thing, he said I can't do the interviews. But he confirmed that was him that day. And I taped it. It was fun. Like him last year. That's fascinating. 'Cause he was undercover too, right? He was in Memphis.
Also, you got a squad set up to protect King. They got ordered to leave and come to a meeting downtown because the police department received threats on their lives. And then there was one brother that stayed. I can't think of his name. Reddick.
But he was in the firehouse. They said it was hit on his life. They took him out the firehouse.
Yeah, well, see, he tells more story, interesting story when you really talk to him. He wouldn't leave. So all that stuff about going over to Kyle's house for dinner and the wife saying it's not ready. She says it was ready. She was getting calls, we can't come. Well, the timeline goes.
You talking about Kyle's wife said they were getting calls that they couldn't come to the house?
Yeah.
So dinner was already ready before 6.
She's complaining. She died dead, but she gave an affidavit. She said she was complaining about it's getting cold and hard. I'm getting upset. So anyway, one brother at the fire station, he got told his kid got hurt in an accident. Better go check on it. He checks on the kids in school. Nothing happened. He calls up, I'll be back. Said, don't worry about it. Takes a day off. So then that's the first delay. Second delay is when these cops wouldn't leave until they got ordered to leave on pain of discipline. So then, okay, it's on. Third delay comes when Reddick won't leave. Reddick also says what happens is they send 10 cops down in 2 squad cars. They handcuff him and hog tie his feet with a rope. And they manhandle him into the back of the squad car and then physically remove Reddick.
Wow. So basically,
So that's the other story. See, they got a nicer story for publication.
I see. Wow.
They even, one of the Withers kids did a little documentary and they tell that other story with him, but we got another statement from him. See, so anyway, all kinds of stuff going wrong. So what it looks like is the weapon was inventoried to the FBI that was used. It was official people acting in a maverick fashion, but J. Edgar knew about it. We also got memoranda that were obtained under the Freedom of Information Act from the FBI and other entities. And the discussion is would King be more dangerous as a dead martyr or alive to revitalize the labor movement and galvanize the anti-war movement? See, at that time, that's right before you get that little thing in Vietnam, 1968. With Vietnamese New Year, when the objective of the Vietnamese was not to hold the cities, it was to simply show the American public they'd been lied to about everything being under control in Vietnam.